So presidential elections are a really busy time for me as a professor of political communication. For my research and for my teaching, I sign up for all the emails, the text messages, the social media updates, the news headlines, the poll results, and it can be a little overwhelming. But even if you don't choose to torture yourself in this same way, you likely find yourself bombarded with messages like this day in and day out, both welcome and unwelcome, from friends and people that you don't know. It can feel like an emotional roller coaster spun out of control. But in the 240 years since the founding of this democracy, this change in how we consume and process information has occurred essentially overnight. So what I want to talk to you about today is what it means to be a citizen in this increasingly digitized world and how to cope with it. We have this nostalgic image when we think about our democracy of citizens gathered in a town hall, gavel in hand, ready to debate the issues of the day for the better of the community. But this image has been replaced by that of a single person, reflected in the dim light of a screen, connected to millions of others, yet alone. It can be overwhelming to be in a world where we get information bombarded at us all the time. But it wasn't always this way. When we think about what it means to be a citizen, we often think about it in terms of those early ideals of duties, like voting, or rights, like the freedom of speech. Now, granted, in the early years of our democracy, those rights and duties were limited to landowning white men, but as we began to progress through the years of our democracy and these rights and duties were opened up to new people of color and women, we had to redefine citizenship again. In the 1960s, we saw a huge surge of civic participation, like sit-ins and protests that forced us again to reevaluate what does a citizen in this country look like? And by the end of the 20th century, Professor Michael Schudson suggested that we had reached the era of the monitorial citizen, someone who scans the political environment for the headlines of the day, but is simply too busy to be a fully engaged citizen, yet they're ready for action when called upon. So where are we now as we enter the 21st century? We saw in the 2008 and 2012 presidential elections technology being used to connect voters in ways that we'd never seen before. And those technologies have been translated into governing strategies. When you look at movements like Occupy Wall Street or the Arab Spring, these simply wouldn't have been possible without social media and online networks. So it's impossible not to ponder, as we are here in 2016, what is our role as citizens in a country where a presidential candidate for a major political party can call an opponent a loser, or crooked, or lion, just as an example. It can be overwhelming to see this kind of such uncivil commentary all around us all the time. And moreover, we are beholden to algorithms. We are beholden to algorithms. These are mathematical and computer formulas that dictate what we see and how we see it. And they happen completely out of our sight. They're biased towards our own personal interests and search history at best, and these algorithms are potentially leading us to outright inaccurate information at worst. So what happens is we end up seeing information kind of like this horse with the blinders on. Because even though we have these algorithms, we don't have simply the internet corporations to blame. We have ourselves to hold accountable as well. Because even when presented with a diverse array of information, human beings are hardwired to process information selectively and categorize it and interpret it in ways that fit with our own pre-existing values, goals, and beliefs. So we all end up walking around kind of looking like this horse. What the digitized world has created is a citizen who can descend further and further into narrower and narrower echo chambers, where you shout your opinion and hear it echoed back at you over and over and over again. And these echo chambers are creating increased fragmentation, increased polarization among citizens in this country and beyond, which leads to an intolerance for a diversity of viewpoints. It has real implications for this democracy. So while we have access to and choice of information like we never have before in this country's history, We also have vast networks of like-minded people with which to connect and make true civic change and action. But the question remains, will we create technology that facilitates this new idea of the digital citizen, or will we continue to create technology that further isolates us into physical disconnect from each other, further customizing and personalizing our online worlds? Perhaps the best solution is to create technology that embraces a diversity of viewpoints, however messy and difficult that might be. Because in the end, we are human, which means we're all prone to misinterpretation, to making errors, and to getting our feelings hurt. But we also are all human, which means we have a unique capacity for compassion and understanding. And if we are aware of these flaws, we can overcome them. We can move beyond both these algorithm flaws and our personal biases. So what do? We are flawed, our technology is flawed, our politicians are flawed, and everyone is very, very angry about it. But again, if we can move beyond this, we can make this a better democracy as digital citizens. What I ask of you is to make sure you're consuming news from a variety of sources, even the ones that you might not typically agree with. Listen to news from other countries. Follow opinion leaders from all around the world. And don't block your friends or family simply because you disagree with a point of view that they have expressed online. Because what we are as digital citizens is we have the tools to meaningfully connect with each other in ways like we never have before. That was where I was going to end this talk. But as I was writing the draft a few months ago on a warm day in June, it was the day after the mass shooting in Orlando, Florida, that left 50 people killed and dozens of others injured. I was sitting at the children's library watching my daughter innocently play and read. And all of a sudden I shut my laptop and I turned to the mother sitting next to me and I said, "This is really hard. It's hard to think about citizenship when we just saw a US citizen murder and injure so many people." And she said, "I know." And she said, "I'm also really worried about this upcoming presidential election." And I said, "Yeah, I understand." And she said, "But what I'm most worried about is what kind of world are our kids growing up into?" And it was at that moment that I realized that one of the most powerful and innovative tools that we have as citizens in this digital democracy is the off button. That's right, the power button. Because if we can step away from these addictive devices, even for just a few minutes, we can step out of those echo chambers and begin to see a whole landscape and diversity of viewpoints that can help us learn something about ourselves and about each other. So right now, even if you're live streaming, I ask you to shut your computer, turn off your phone, set down the tablet, and talk to someone. Because you never know what you'll learn about yourself and about other citizens in this democracy when we communicate IRL, that is, in real life. Thank you.